So in order to let go of a defense mechanism, you first have to know that you have one, obviously. And that's actually one of the most difficult groups of patients, are the ones who who have no idea about themselves, and maybe they come to therapy to talk about what's wrong with other people. And in psychodynamic literature, you say that their defenses are syntonic. So with that means that they are a part of them. So it's more like they see a defense as a trait, like it's a trait they were born with. So they can't see it as like a trait that they use to protect themselves. So they see it as, no, that's just who I am. So that's very common with those kind of patients, where we're saying this is just who I am. And if you as a therapist then start to, prematurely or in a clumsy way, identify, oh, you go a lot to your thoughts, that might be a defense, then that very patient might feel very attacked or criticized, because you feel like, this is just who I am. So if that's the case, for you, then if you are that person, it might be that you have a lot of thoughts about what's wrong with other people. And normally that person don't go to therapy, actually. But if you're lucky, you actually go to therapy, and then it can be quite uncomfortable to change that perception and to start to actually acknowledge you. Because that's often what went wrong in the first place, that you weren't acknowledged, you weren't seen, no attention to you, and you're not used to reflecting about you, and you're not used to being with yourself and being curious with yourself. You're more used to, seeing dangers outside, so seeing problems in other people, or you might be used to adapting also a lot to other people. So forgetting about your own needs, but say wanting everyone else to be happy. So actually that's very common. Someone who complains a lot on other people also puts a lot of effort to make other people happy. And it has the same theme, to really, you've forgotten about yourself. So if that's the case, you would really need very concrete help with identifying yourself, simply put, because you actually don't exist. You actually don't exist. You are more, your brain is more, occupied with other people's existence. So first of all, you have to get help with identifying on your own, or with help from a therapist, identifying that what kind of things you do or what kind of thoughts you have that actually serves as a way to neglect you or to protect you. So you need often to get help from someone else that can observe you and that can, tell you. It might be that when you complain about someone else, instead of, let's see if we can understand what it is that person does that triggers you so much. Like, what is it that's happening in you that gets so uncomfortable that you need to just talk about the other person. So first of all, to really shift a focus to you instead of on everyone else. And that shift you would need to do, in general, in order to really get to know yourself and to grow as a person, to really have the mindset that you're responsible for. So the way you feel about yourself and your place in this world is only for you to. It's only your responsibilities. You know, it's only you who can change the way you feel about yourself and your place in this world. Even though you are also, when you are treated in a way you don't like, to really reflect, have a mindset, okay, what is it that I do that make other people treat me in this way? So if you have an experience of being very minimized or being very criticized, which makes you complain about them. But if you're very criticized, then it's very helpful to start to think, how is my relationship to myself? Like, how are my thoughts to myself? And if you then might discover, I'm quite critical toward myself, start to work on that instead of trying to change someone else to not criticize you. Because the fact you are criticizing yourself is the reason to why someone else is criticizing you. So that might feel, difficult and harsh to think like that, because it's much easier to think about what everyone else does that's wrong. But that doesn't serve you, and that doesn't help you. So that's really the first step, to stop thinking about everyone else and to just, observe, what is it that I do that serves as a protection toward me? How do I guard myself? In what way? What is it I think? What is it? How do I act? And ask for feedback for other people, and they might tell you. Yeah, our whole survival system, I mean, it's more adaptive for us to all the time look for threats outside of us, obviously, to look for external problems. That is like it's in our DNA, it's innate. Like when walking out in the wild, it would be stupid to just, be in your own head all the time. Obviously, you need to, be aware of what's going on outside and, look for threats. So that's not only because of a certain individual's upbringing, that's, human, to all the time have this focus on problems outside of ourselves. Because for us to look inside, what do we need for us to look inside? What kind of environment do we need to look inside? Well, we need to really trust that the environment is safe. So we need to trust that someone else is looking for the dangers outside, so that we can, trust that, and I can relax. They're looking for threats, and I can be here and just, have this ritual with myself. And it's the same thing when women give birth. Animals do it. They go to somewhere where they can hide and where they can feel safe, and so they can give birth. And humans do it as well. It's very difficult to give birth naturally if you don't feel safe. Your body needs to feel that someone is watching, and so that you can just go inside, which you really need to do when you give birth. Not be disconnected, but really connect with yourself and go inside so that you can relax and you can feel safe and let your body do its thing. And it's the same thing in the process of how you work with defenses. You can't do it if you are still in the environment that promotes the defense. So it's pretty difficult, for example, to work with a woman who is being beaten at home, and to try to work with her emotions, because her whole body is saying, no, I still need to defend myself, or I need to, not be too open or whatever. And the same thing, with the man who say, it's, obviously it's not dependent on gender. With the man who is being controlled or criticized when vulnerable, and with the person who won't change, it's very difficult to help him to open up, because it's counterintuitive. So for someone to truly heal and work with themselves so they can heal, they need to be in a relaxed, safe environment. And we can speak also of how difficult that is when we're living our stressed lives, everything we need to do, and we need to fill all these roles of being a parent and of being a partner and working and money, and be aware of what's going on in the world. It's not very relaxed, the environment we live in. So it's not really promoting well-being. It's not really promoting healing. And, many has discussed that. And also, like, going to a retreat center or going to a meditation camp or whatever, that might eventually also function as something we need to do. So that also maybe comes from, stress or fear, or the fear of not being enough, and etc. So that's, it's tricky. But we need to feel safe. So for this process to be really efficient, this process of going inward and starting to identify your potential protection, you need to be safe, so that you can start to be aware of and let go. So that's one. If you want to let go of what doesn't serve you inside, you first have to be able to let go of your external environment, to let go of responsibility or of attention or of fear, or in looking for threats. You have to let go of that in order to discover and eventually let go of mechanisms or old protection systems in you that don't serve you anymore. So if you find yourself in a reoccurring situation where you are always left hurt or angry or alone, and you found that this continues to happen, and you seem to handle it in sort of the same way every time, like focus on what the other person has done to you, and say how you are a victim to circumstances, then it might be helpful to start to reflect, is it something that I do that first of all attracts these kinds of behaviors from the outside, to attract these kinds of partners? And secondly, is it something that I do that contributes to me being hurt? Is it maybe actually not someone from the outside, it's not someone else that is hurting me actually? Maybe it's that I'm hurting myself. First of all, I'm hurting myself all the time, and then I'm inviting with my behavior someone else to hurt me as well. And obviously I didn't hurt myself as a baby. I didn't come up with it in an early age. Maybe even the way I was born. I don't know if there are research, I don't know so much about that, but one can imagine if you are born, say, and you don't get physical contact with your mother directly, or it was a very traumatic birth, for example, that might affect how your relationship with yourself and the world becomes. If you view the world as a safe place, or if you view the world as a cold and scary place, that might program you from the start. Like if you are prepared to be left alone all the time, then that actually becomes your safety. So that becomes what you are used to from the start, which then leads you to seek other similar situations where you are abandoned, because that's your safety. So it's so clever and so stupid in the same time. So the actual situation that hurt you the most and were most dangerous, you end up seeking that situation and the people in that situation over and over and over again. And then it becomes quite inefficient to just focus on what's wrong with that environment. Then you have to start to think about, okay, this is what do I do that contributes to me being hurt all the time? Oh, I was hurt. Oh, I was scared. So I learned to hurt myself, and I learned to put myself in situations where I'm scared. Okay. So what can I do to stop hurting myself and instead start to take care of myself? What can I do to stop putting myself in situations where I'm scared and instead working on comforting myself, so that can be the safety, my home, the place that I look for instead of those situations that scare me. And that's also very common. Like if you have a lot of traumas and you have gotten used to be very alert to your environment, and then actually if you find yourself in an environment where you're very safe, it's very calm, and maybe with a partner that's very safe, your body will react to that after a while. It will think that safety and a calm environment is sort of boring. And if it's not fights around you, or if it's not, you're not being bullied or whatever, your body will create that environment where you're bullied, and we will start a fight. So you will maybe be the one who bullies, or you will pick a fight just so that your body will feel safe and home again, because that's what you're brought up in. And then you're stuck. You're really stuck, and then you're sort of blaming the environment, like, oh, no one understands me, but it's actually your own very, very loyal body who creates the traumatic experience over and over and over again, because it feels like home. And that's so sad, and it's so important that you learn to see that you get help with that, because that's the only thing, that's the only way for it to change. We really have introspection and see. And I worked with women before who were sexually abused, and with the treatment where I worked with the kind of treatment back then, it was early in my career, where we only helped them with their trauma of being abused, but we didn't help them to identify how they, after the trauma, they went back to the very traumatic situation over and over again. Like in psychodynamic literature, they would say it's a repetitive compulsive behavior. So you sort of want to repeat your trauma, so the body thinks that it can solve it, but you just repeat it. So in any treatment, you need to not only process your traumas, but also to be aware how your body is seeking the trauma and sees it at home instead of actual safety and home.